Well, thank you for making some time to talk today, Jillian. I'm really fortunate I have the chance to learn some insights from you today and really appreciate your time. What we always like to do to kick off these episodes is just learn a bit about you and, the journey you've been on. And it can just be the highlights, anything that comes to mind. The reason I ask is so many students, I think, leave university or college or a program and think, all right, now I'm going to be working in that job that, I have as a dream. But there's so many steps along the way and things that happen that are unexpected or new opportunities come up. So I always like to just know, what has the journey been like for you to get where you are today? Because I think students
Sure.
do a tremendous amount from that.
Well, you can tell by the color of my hair that, or lack of color of my hair, that, I'm older. So I'm in my mid 70s, but I started in this career almost 47 years ago. But for about 7 years up to that time, I had graduated from university, degree in sociology. And from a very young age, I knew I wanted to be a helper, but I really had no particular career goal in mind, just to be a helper. I was very focused on well, in those days, I guess we would have called civil rights, but inclusion and poverty issues and things like that. So I always wanted to be a helper, and I did work as a helper in about three different kinds of occupations before I found employment counseling.
Okay.
And I just never quite found the right thing. My very first job, I moved to Toronto. I lived in a smaller town in Ontario. And my very first job was as a welfare worker. That's what we were called in those days. And I
Yeah.
had to go into people's homes and help them with financial assistance. And I was glad that that was available to people, but it became really clear to me that just giving people money does not change anything. It
Oh,
can't change the cycle of poverty by just giving enough money for people to maybe pay their rent and eat. And these days, it's not even that much. And I just thought, well, there has to be something else that we could be doing to help people who
absolutely.
are able and wanting to work to find that work. It took me a few more years, and then I got interviewed as an employment counselor. In those days, a lot of employment counseling was done through the federal government, employment and immigration. And I was with them for 14 years, and really it changed the whole trajectory of my career because I found it. I found it. I knew that this was it. And as I say, 47 years later in June, it it's still my life's passion. And even though I'm supposedly retired, I pretty much work 5 and 6 days a week. A lot of that for nothing as a volunteer, but it's because I have such a very strong belief in the power of work to change people's lives. And so that is my passion, and I see it as a social justice issue. And I believe that it is a mental health issue, that when people find work that is good for them in alignment with who they are, we help not just that person, but their family, their community, our country. People
Absolutely.
pay taxes. When we pay taxes, we support the infrastructure of our safety net in this country. We are lucky to have that. And and a lot of that comes down to people being employed. But it isn't just about being employed, it's about finding work that is satisfying to that person, whatever that means to the individual, that is in alignment with their values, whatever those values are, and that feeds them rather than depletes them. And I'm sure we've all done jobs that deplete us.
Absolutely.
But when you know what it feels like to do something, and it doesn't matter what it is, it doesn't have to be for the greater social good. If I am the best darn bagel maker in Toronto, then I am satisfied because I know that people love my product, whatever, what doesn't matter what the occupation is. So I was very fortunate. Now, as you can tell, I'm a baby boomer, and I was extremely fortunate to walk into when I graduated, you could literally walk into jobs, which I did. It's not the same now.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine it will ever be like that again. And so helping people to find the things that will feed them, that will feed their soul. I
Yes.
believe we do soul work. But also to give people the skills to be able to manage their career over their lifespan. People will not stay in one occupation forever unless you're in the professions, you know. But even then, how many accountants do I know changed years halfway through their lives, right? I
It's
mean,
funny you say that. Yeah, I have a story about that I'll tell you, but I definitely agree with that.
yeah. So it's not just about finding that one niche. It's about knowing oneself extremely well. And from that place of self knowledge, and of course, we grow and we change over the lifespan, but being ready for changes in the world of work. And I think that's one of the most important things. You know, so much of our work is focused on helping people find work, keep work, progress in work, whatever it might be. But the other part of it for me is around managing one's career over the lifespan. Like, what is next for me? Where do I want to be in the next 5 years? Eh, What am I prepared to do to have a change in my life? What opportunities that are sitting out here on the periphery would I even any idea about? So I think that's a huge part of the work that career practitioners can do is not just that immediate satisfaction of needs, but the longer term satisfaction of needs as everything around us changes.
Oh, thank you for sharing those insights, Jillian. And I think it's so interesting to hear, you kind of knew early on that you wanted to help people and that it took time to discover, the way you would deliver that help. And I think many
Yes,
times, job seekers are a little worried about you finding that perfect position right away, but you kind of discovered it by just helping in one area and going, okay, there's more I want to do. And I think a lot of that discovery can come from trying things. So for job seekers out
exactly.
there, if you're not in that perfect position yet, try to learn something about yourself, to Jillian's point, and
That's
hopefully
right.
that help guides you.
And I think that's such an important point that we are always growing, we are always learning. What is this? Was it Jung that said, we're always in the process of becoming
Like
because
that.
we are not the same. Yes, we may have certain traits that are similar through our lifespan, but we change and everything around us changes, and everything is an opportunity for learning. Even bad experiences are good opportunities for learning. What
Yes.
did you learn from that? I never want to work in an environment like that again. Okay, flip that around. What kind of environment do you want to work in? What would be a good one for you? And then you take, life changes. So there was a period in my life when I was a single parent, and I was still with the government, and I had opportunities to move, and I had to turn some of those down at the beginning because I couldn't travel. When he was a little bit older, I'd just pack him up and off we'd go, and we'd be in Vancouver. Of course, now he lives in Vancouver. That's my problem. I took him there,
Oh,
but but depending on one's life roles, one's possibilities can change, or our view of our possibilities can change. And so, as a person who helps people with those kinds of decisions, helping people to look at those life roles and how do those life roles impact their decisions, and how do their decisions impact the others in their lives? So if I'm looking after elderly parents, how does that manage my life at this point? If I'm single and free to do whatever I want, then you mentioned earlier this notion of possibilities.
Yes.
And I have a story about planned happenstance. One of the theories we use in our field is called planned happenstance.
I like
So it
that.
isn't just happenstance, it's the planful side of it. So one of our jobs is to help people see, often we see the world with those blinders on like horses in the city.
Yes.
Whereas if you took those off, you see things on the side that you might not consider. And years ago, I had finished my master's. Both my parents were gone. My son had moved out west. I was on my own. I had a tenured position at George Brown College. And I was starting to think about the future. I've always been like a 5 year sort of planner. And I had this goal, and my goal was to continue teaching what I teach in another country in a warm climate by the water.
Okay.
Now, at the point I was about 50, I can't remember, somewhere in my early 50s. And I thought when I'm in my 60s, I will go maybe to the southern United States or maybe Australia. And one day I got a call from a headhunter, and he was doing a national search for counselor educators. And he said, I've been told you won't be interested, but you know all the other counselor educators, and maybe you could give me some leads. So I was multitasking, doing paperwork at the time. And he told about this position in the United Arab Emirates to start up a Bachelor of Education in Career Advising and Counseling.
Huh.
And my subconscious said out loud through my voice, oh, that sounds quite interesting. And long story short, I ended up going to the UAE, setting up that program, training women Emiratis for 3.5 years, and then came
Oh,
back to George Brown. And then when I did retire, I went back again for another 3 years. But
oh,
that's planned happenstance. I had absolutely everything they wanted. At that point in my life, it was a time when I could do that and take a leave from the college. And it was like, here it is. It wasn't how I imagined it being in a country where English was the same language, where the culture would be virtually the same. It was very different, but
but
it
it
was
kind of came
everything that
around.
I wanted. It
Yeah.
was everything I wanted. And that is the happenstance part.
I think that's extremely powerful, and I really like that term because it kind of it forces not forces you, it somewhat makes you gravitate towards collecting kinda, the different skills you need, being patient enough for the timing, maybe meeting the right people in some way, and then suddenly it all kinda comes together into an opportunity like that, and, the stars kind of align, and you can take advantage of it if you've kind of been doing these things along the way. That's amazing to hear, Jillian.
It's all based on a theory by John Crumboltz, and he has a book called "Luck Is No Accident," and
Ah,
it's a straightforward book. It's not meant for practitioners; it's meant for the layperson. But it talks about being curious, and I think that's one of the things that helping people to be curious about other possibilities, perseverance. So just because something doesn't work out the first time doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. The notion of taking risks. In my case, a very calculated risk.
right.
But it doesn't have to be a jump off the bridge kind of thing, but taking a risk of doing something a little bit different. And the whole notion, as you've just said, of meeting people and being open to hearing about things. So when we are curious and know our risk levels and are willing to persevere, then who knows what can happen in life.
Yeah, I really like that, and it's such a simple mentality anyone can adopt is just to foster that curiosity.
Yes.
It brings to my girlfriend this past weekend took a course on how to make hats. And I don't think she has any intention of becoming a hat maker, but she was curious, and you never know who you can meet at that or what you discover about yourself to your earlier point that makes you go, "Oh, I enjoyed some aspect of this. Maybe I'll try this other thing." I think that concept of being curious is actually very powerful. So I'm really glad you brought
Yeah.
that up.
Yeah. I think it's such a foundational piece of career exploration. Often clients would come in and say, just tell me what I should do, so I'll be happy in my work forever.
Yes.
well, that's not my job. My job is to take you on a journey of self awareness, and then take from that perspective of knowing oneself very well, then what kinds of occupations, environments, is called person environment fit theory, would be suitable for you at this moment in time? And then how would I go about getting there? So it's that internal, it's called trait factor theory, knowing one's traits, including our values, and then using that as the lens to do career exploration, because you don't just grab that one thing. Does it fit this part of you, this part of you, this part of you? How long could you do it? Can you do it, even physically do it? And until most people, including many career practitioners,
Yes.
when I started in this business, maybe I could have described 100 or so occupations,
Hmm.
but at any given time, there are 25,000 different occupations, and they change all the time.
Yeah.
So why would we expect the common person who's just going about their lives to know about all the possibilities? And that's why a well-trained career practitioner can help in that journey. They walk beside the person to help them consider, how would that fit for you? If these are your interests, if these are your values, if this is your personality, if this is your physical capability, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, how would that occupation fit for you?
It's so true. And I was actually at a conference yesterday with career practitioners, um, talking to them about what you initially said as well, that the role is actually so vital. It's what it's what enables people to, provide schooling for their children, homes, vacations. It's such an integral part of people's lives to help them find a meaningful career. But I do think that many people in the role don't necessarily have the training that they want. They don't
Yeah,
necessarily have um, the background that will help them excel in the role. And it's just because they themselves may not have had an opportunity to take any sort of additional education around it. So you made a really interesting point, I think early in your career, but also just in our episode today, about how, you kind of discovered that just giving people money isn't necessarily the answer for what they need. And I think many times job seekers come to career practitioners hoping that they'll write their resume for them or their
yeah,
cover letter for them. So
yeah,
what's your kind of guidance for career practitioners today? If a job seeker comes with that sort of mindset, what are some of the, I know you mentioned a couple of the theories. What are some things that they could learn a bit more about to help guide job seekers?
yeah. Well, I mean, there's some wonderful professional development out there, and our field is becoming more and more professionalized. I'm part of the certifying body for
Oh,
Ontario for all practitioners, and I'm on the national certifying as well. So we're moving to national certification in the fall. So
wow.
there are lots of things out there, but just before I answer that question, um, this particular profession is like many other professions. You're only as good as your last information. And so it is incumbent upon us to be up to date, to really know labor market, know how to access information, know how to evaluate resources. I mean, that is part of our ethical responsibility. But when a person comes and they want you to do it for them, um, yeah, probably just as easy for me to write their resume as it is to teach them how to write a resume. But that's, first of all, I don't believe that's an ethical way to treat another human being.
Right.
And we need to give people the tools to manage their careers. But helping people to understand the magnitude of their choices. So, on the one hand, good old Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If I don't have food for my children, if we're going to be without a place to live, I'm not going to start doing career exploration. I'm going to help that person get whatever job they need at this moment. Like
Absolutely.
a similar path, not as desperate, would be so the newcomer who comes and can't immediately work to the level that they may have worked in their home country. But that satisfying the immediate need is only one thing. That's short-term planning. If we do nothing more than that, then we have done disservice, I believe, because we've left them staying there. Whereas if we say, okay, we understand the urgency, let's get this, whatever you need now, but let's also start looking at future planning
Right.
because time goes like that. Like life passes before you ever know. And if you wait, if you wait for, oh, it'll be better for me to do it, it'll be better in 5 years. And well, 5 years will be gone in a heartbeat. And the person will be, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always gotten.
Oh, I like that.
So the only way something will change is if the person does something differently. So I believe as a profession, we are responsible to our clients to help them be able to know that there are ways for them to move forward in their lives if they so choose. Sometimes people are just so beaten down that, hope, a lot of our counseling is hope based, right?
I
Like to
agree.
reinstill hope. And, when we use the term encouragement, well, what does that mean? It means to give courage. It takes courage to do a job search. It takes courage to go back to school. It takes courage to change careers. So our job is partly to help people to get that courage from within, but also, of course, as supports for people in very difficult life situations. But that's if I give you a day job today so that you can eat tonight, that's great.
Yes.
But you're going to be back tomorrow and you're going to be back the next day. And it doesn't do anything to change your life.
100%.
So I think, with our social systems, there people will always criticize social systems, and so be it. Aren't we lucky that we can criticize social systems? But they are meant not for long term. They are meant to help people in this moment so that then they can get ready to do something else. And that's where we come in of helping people to see that there are possibilities, there is hope. And what do they need to take that next step?
Uh,
Whether it's somebody coming out of jail who hasn't worked in 10 years, a newcomer to the country, a person who's in receipt of social assistance, somebody whose partner just left them. I mean, in our business, we see it all, everything, start to finish.
it's a poignant reminder, and I think one that I hope many career service professionals hear. Just again, how important the role is, how meaningful it is, and the impact that they can make. And if they wanted to learn more, about being certified and learn about, how to stay up to date, what can current career practitioners do to learn more about the program that you spoke about, the certification itself?
So it's our website is CDPC, Career Development Practitioners Certification Board of Ontario, CDPCBO. .org, and they can go on there and they'll find out everything about it. Of course, they can write to me and my G Johnston at, and we're happy to tell people about it. There are videos on there. There's information sessions. We are moving to national certification in the fall. So everybody who's already certified in Ontario will be transferred over. And this is a very good thing, not just for us as a profession, but it's a very good thing for the people we serve. Yesterday I was driving and I always use the nurses as an example. The nurses send their message loud and clear. This is why we are important. And
Yes.
this is why governments should listen to us. It's the same thing for us. We work with people who are unemployed and we work with people who are underemployed and we work with every strata of humankind in this country. And we know what people need and we know what employers need because we work with employers too. And so I strongly believe that as a profession, we need to be saying loud and clear to all Canadians, you deserve to have good career counseling from not cradle, but from about grade 7 to grave. And, like I'm 75 and I'm still working. Lots of people still work, particularly if you love what you do, but lots of people have to work, even
Right.
if they're older. So if we're going to have to do it anyway, let's enjoy what we can, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I do think you're right as well around just the fact that this role in general is about instilling hope. I really love that reminder. I have, been trying to remind people that as well. So I'm really glad you brought that up. And I couldn't agree more. If work's going to be part of, such a large portion of our lives, it is important and it is possible to find work we enjoy, excel at, and, can create well-balanced lives around. So I think it's a really, really important reminder. And I'm so glad you said that, Jillian.
Thank
Um,
you.
I know we're coming up close on the time I asked for you today, so I just want to say thank you so much for your insights. I hope we can have you back on a future episode because I feel like we've just gotten started here and already close to wrapping up. But again, thank you for sharing this messaging. I think again, it's an incredibly important position that people can make a huge impact in. And I just wanted to ask, if you have anything else you'd like to add before we close off today.
Well, I was at dinner with a couple of grads the other night from the CDP program at George Brown, and they said, "Did you ever think about the impact?" And I said, "Every one of you, the thousands of people I have trained to be career practitioners, every one of those people has seen thousands of people, and for every one little drop in that pond, the ripple effect is huge. So if people are interested in becoming one of us, if you want to have an impact on people's lives and all the well-being of individuals and this country, then this is the job for you."
Oh, what a great note to end it on, Jillian. We'll put a link to the website in the description of this so people can find it easily. I encourage you to
Thank you.
check it out. Yeah, it might just be the job for you. And
You
thank
never
you
know.
again, Jillian. Really
You're
appreciate
very,
your
very
time.
welcome. Thank you.
Have a great
Bye
week.
bye.